Speedrunning is often about pushing a game to its absolute limits, poking, prodding, and testing every hypothesis in hopes of discovering massive time saves. But what happens when speedrunners push the boundaries too far and discover glitches so powerful they become existential threats to their favorite games? And for Castlevania Circle of the Moon speedrunners, this is an important question, because recently major discoveries have been found that do completely change this game forever, culminating in what some might call a nuclear disaster, as a brand new glitch was discovered called nuclear fusion. And to help showcase these new world-shattering discoveries, I asked my good friend and Castlevania speedrunning legend, JupiterClimb, to show me exactly what's been going on in the world of Circle of the Moon speedrunning as of late, by showcasing the brand new all bosses speedrunning route, and showing off what is quite possibly the most broken glitch I've ever seen.
DB, what are your impressions of Circle of the Moon? Because I can almost guarantee what you're going to see here is not what you expect.
I remember way back in the day when I was first getting into speedrunning, the Magician Any Percent run. There was like a task of it that was like really popular that people would share around because it was like, wow, beat the game in 3 minutes, isn't that crazy? So I'm aware of some of this game's glitches, some of the game's like early speedrun development. Speaking of, let's quickly recap some of that speedrun development, as it'll be important to help contextualize this new amazing nuclear fusion glitch. Castlevania Circle of the Moon originally released in the year 2000 for the Game Boy Advance, and this game has always been known for its speedrunning potential. As far back as 2004, there are forum posts on taskvideos.org discussing routing ideas for speedruns of this game, culminating in a tool-assisted speedrun that used powerful spells to beat the game in just a few minutes. And in Circle of the Moon, all spells are performed by combining 2 DSS cards, normally dropped randomly from enemies, with 100 unique spells to choose from. Early speedrunning routes revolved around starting the game using the Fireball name code, so they can play in Magician mode with worse combat stats, but all 20 DSS cards unlocked from the start, so they could take advantage of the Black Dog plus Pluto combo. This transforms Nathan into a skeleton that will instantly die after taking any amount of damage. The skeleton can also throw bones, with a 1 in 8 chance of throwing a big bone that does massive damage. In a task setting, runners can use emulator tools like save states and frame advances to guarantee the 1 in 8 chance of getting a big bone, so they can defeat bosses quickly and reliably. But real-time speedrunners were relying on essentially a bone lottery, hoping for good RNG to get big bones so that way they can take out the many bosses in this game. That is, until now.
If you've played categories like Magician, then you already know about the RNG nature of Circle of the Moon speedrunning. So for, 20 years, this game was all about getting lucky. You have to play well, of course, but if you want to get a top time, the luck has got to go your way. That is no longer the case. So this is Nuclear Magician, all bosses. But yeah, we're going to try to complete the game as quick as possible. All glitches are allowed, but every boss must be defeated before the end of the game. Now, we've got the most important trick of the run immediately. Genuinely right here at the start. So you're going to see Nathan transforms into a skeleton. We're going to do a little something called frame advancing. This is very complicated science we're looking at here. So this close game screen that pops up, on the PC version of the Advanced Collection, if you press the escape key, you get this prompt here. Do you want to close the game or not? If you keep that button held and keep pressing no, it'll advance the game by exactly 1 frame.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know it worked like that.
It's almost like a built-in tool assist.
I mean, how viable is it to do some of these glitches without the frame advance?
Well, I do think players like Amadeus, for example, have shown that a lot of these frame-perfect, double frame-perfect tricks are definitely doable real-time. But this does make this category in particular a lot more accessible. We'll definitely see more consistency with this trick allowed.
Funny enough, with the newest release of this game as part of the Castlevania Advanced Collection, they inadvertently added a way for real-time speedrunners to become more like a task. This closed game screen adds a way for runners to buffer their inputs and go frame by frame to execute complex glitches flawlessly every time, trading speed for consistency. But why is this pixel-perfect, frame-perfect trick even important to the speedrun in the first place? Well, I'll have Jupiter explain that.
Okay. Nathan Graves is going to turn into a skeleton. Then we're going to use frame advance to get a frame-perfect, pixel-perfect trick called a bone float, where you land, press forward, and attack at roughly the same time. And that takes you off the very edge of the platform. You walk in midair. However, here the only reason we need skeleton, which used to be the centerpiece of Circle speedrunning, is to get off the ground. We just need the skeleton to float in air. So the whole reason this glitch works is we're going to be combining two different charge combinations. The first one is the Imp Familiar. The way this works is when you hold your whip out, it'll charge up an attack and then you release, and it shoots out a laser beam, which is honestly pretty unimpressive in terms of the damage. The second one is something called Quick Draw, where you're locked in place, you hold your weapon, you release, and the longer it's held, the more damage you deal. So you can see these two cards are pretty similar, but both are quite low tier. When combined, it creates a chemical reaction that blows up the game. So we're gonna see that we get in midair here, we activate Quick Draw, land on the platform, it's in a glitched state now.
You're not supposed to be able to like slide around and stuff like that while you have the quick draw held, I imagine, right?
Exactly, and this is because of that bone float. The game gets confused, so the charge property remains, even though we're now moving around. We're gonna combine this with the Imp. So we switch over to the Imp Summon, get near the end of the room, we're charging up. This is double frame perfect, and it's very awkward, so frame advance is gonna be super useful here. What happens when you combine an Imp charge with a quick draw? This happens.
I'm sorry, how much damage was that? Oh. What? Okay.
He's radioactive. We have turned Nathan Graves into a walking nuclear bomb. And the radiation is gonna dismantle anything on screen, doing cap damage.
Yeah, there's supposed to be enemies on the screen, but they're dying before. It's so... Okay, so many questions. So, is it just like a giant active hitbox that's touching like the whole screen?
Full screen hitbox, you got it.
Oh my god, that's crazy. So yeah, this combination of seemingly unrelated cards stacked on top of each other create a nuclear fusion of glitches, destroying everything on screen with a constant hitbox doing max damage. But much like the nuclear technology of the real world, this state of nuclear fusion is incredibly unstable and can end in disaster if not handled properly.
So, this nuclear bomb is a little unstable, and there are certain things you gotta keep in mind. I remember me and Halgorithm did like a week's worth of testing on all the different permutations. A couple things you might wanna know. If you get hit, the nuke goes away.
Okay.
Now, that seems pretty easy because, things blow up. What's gonna hit you? Certain enemies can spawn right on top of you. If that happens, the run's dead because you can't get the nuke back. The second thing to know is that anytime you use your whip, if you don't whip spin, immediately afterwards, the nuke goes away. So regular attack cancels the nuke. This is dangerous because in a lot of places you want to use the whip. So you got to just keep in mind that whenever you use the whip, you've got to make sure it's also a whip spin. So here we've got the dash boots. One of the cool things about Circle is the way you get a pretty good amount of movement early on. You start with a slide, which is pretty decent. It's the quickest way to move around. Then you get dash right away, and the first boss has double jump.
Yeah. I can't get over how funny it is to just walk into a room and then within a few frames, they all just blow up.
I love that frame you just picked with the 99999. Isn't this amazing? This game has been out for over 2 decades, and this trick is brand new. Tassers never found it, old speedrunners never found it, but Halgorithm found it. It's crazy. It's one of my all-time favorite speedrunning stories of just some guy, in this case a La Mulana speedrunner, coming in, testing out a couple of things everyone else had overlooked, and totally changing the game.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the craziest glitches I've ever seen in a speedrun, by far. I think this is a great time to recap what exactly is the goal for the rest of the speedrun now that Nathan Graves is a walking nuclear explosion. Well, this isn't all bosses speedrun, meaning every boss needs to be defeated before killing Dracula and getting the endgame credits. So right now, Nathan is on his way towards the first boss of the run, Cerberus. And well, I'll let you take a guess as to how you think that fight's gonna go.
This is Cerberus. That was Cerberus.
Oh no.
You know what's interesting here, by the way? You kill the boss so quick, you have time to enter, leave the room, and come back before the door closes, which skips the cutscene. Yeah, normally you gotta wait for a Cerberus to fade away from the screen, which takes 10 seconds. But here you leave, pop right back in, and Cerberus is totally gone, just like that.
And then immediately we get the double jump. So after beating Cerberus, speedrunners then backtrack to the very beginning of the game. This may seem strange since this appears to be a dead end, but that's the thing about Circle of the Moon, Where normal players may see a dead end, speedrunners see an opportunity. And there are many more glitches to take advantage of outside of nuclear fusion.
So here we've got a brand new trick coming up. We're going towards what appears to be a dead end. This is where we fell down at the start of the game, but right here, we're gonna swap over to an Apollo combo. This is actually a 2-frame trick, so you get a little bit of wiggle room. Yeah, you wanna jump and activate this special right as you're leaving the screen, and you get warped up to the top of the next screen.
So the Apollo card, when mixed with any other elemental card, has the ability to do a full screen attack. But the animation of that attack sends Nathan to the center of the screen vertically. And by activating the spell at the same time as jumping through a vertical screen transition, the game warps Nathan to the top of the next screen, all the way in the ceiling. And this glitch works in any large vertical room like this, so it will be used a lot during the speedrun to skip massive sections of the castle. And from here, you may be thinking, well, if everything dies instantly, and there are glitches to warp around the castle, what's even left to optimize for a speedrun? Well, for the rest of the run, speedrunners primarily get to focus on having clean movement, running and jumping through the castle, as well as performing the remaining glitches as quickly as possible. And speaking of glitches, there are still even more glitches speedrunners will take advantage of during this run.
But yeah, we're gonna bust out the skeleton for another bone float.
Yeah.
So we can fight Camilla and Necromancer early.
So... Huh?
Oh yeah, so I should explain this. So when you do a bone float,
Okay.
you end up standing off the ground. Well, if you then go back onto solid ground and you jump, the game doesn't really know how to handle Nathan's position, so it just launches him up into the air. And what you gotta do is you gotta jump to get airborne, then you crouch so that when you're fully pushed up, you end up next to the ceiling in a crouching state. Then you stand up so that you're standing up inside of the ceiling. Then you turn back into skeleton and you can hop onto the ceiling. It's just that simple.
Wow, okay. So it lets you clip into the ceiling here, basically, and now you're on top of the room? Oh, wow. Oh, and
on
then
top of the room with a nuke. Yes.
And it skips the rock that's in your way normally. Right here, you normally need the shoulder tackle to get past this guy. You would think like, oh, now that you're a giant walking nuke, you can just, go beat the game however you want. But there's still like interesting routing decisions being made here and like glitches to get around other obstacles. I was like, all right, so what's the strat for this boss? Oh yeah.
And once again, we're gonna pop out, skip the cutscene, pop back in. That's a long cutscene too. That's like 25 seconds of time save in total.
So we just got the shoulder tackle ability.
It's worth picking that up. We could try and go onto the ceiling again, but honestly, it's much slower than just grabbing the relic. So you jump against this part of the ceiling here to get a good alignment. Then you crouch, slide, skeleton, frame advance, find the right frame, hold forward attack. You're in the air, jump, crouch, release, jump onto the ceiling.
Nice.
Here we're gonna see Apollo plus Unicorn, and we're gonna clip into the next room using a warp like that.
Oh, so you wouldn't be able to get past into the Eternal Corridor here unless you like interact with that door, right?
Exactly, because there's a door there, if you try to slide off and like hold left to get back in bounds, like you would for most room transitions, you would just fall straight down. So you have to use this special to like bring Nathan's position down. It touches the door transition and it gets us to the corridor. It's interesting how conveniently a lot of these glitches work together. If a couple of things were different, I think this run wouldn't be possible, but...
This is what you were talking about, where normally you just fall off the edge of the screen and then interact with the screen transition that way to get back in bounds. But if there's a door there,
yeah.
You can't do that. Gotcha.
These enemies, by the way, are super bulky in vanilla. They're really hard to deal with. This is actually some of the most interesting platforming in a non-nuclear category, but Nathan's going to work here.
Dude, I remember getting absolutely wrecked by these enemies. It is so cathartic to see them just explode, because they are quite difficult to deal with.
This used to be one of the signature tricks of circle speedrunning, but at this point, it kind of looks routine compared to everything else we've seen. We do a standard bone float, and we float on up, and that's it. It's kind of boring.
Yeah, all things considered. Oh, wow, we're just flying up the top of the screen. Boring. You talked about not getting hit earlier. I guess because the red water here does do damage to you, it doesn't actually put you in like the hit stun animation, so it doesn't knock you out of the nuclear glitch here.
Yeah, when we were first routing the nuclear stuff, we were concerned this would negate the nuke, but it just doesn't for some reason, which again, to my earlier point, super convenient. If this did kill the nuke, you would have to we have to come up with a totally different strat. We might even have to do death first, just to get the Purify. Now this is maybe my favorite boss quick kill coming up. Needs no explanation, it'll speak for itself. And she's dead.
Oh my goodness. We are staring at the nuclear blast right now. So this is just you getting all of the level up animations?
It sure is. On frame 1 with the white screen plastered over the game.
The thing is she should have never transformed. She was doing so fine before she transformed. Unfortunate.
So we do this fight much earlier than in the regular game. This is supposed to be one of the final bosses because Camilla is guarding high jump, aka the rock wing, which is going to be super useful for the rest of the run. So getting this early is appreciated.
We never even brought up the fact that you're using a card combination to increase your normal running speed.
Oh, we should talk about that. But yeah, the Pluto plus Griffin combination really increases your movement speed, but only when you're on the ground. So optimally, what you want to do is try and run as much as possible and jump as rarely as you can. The boss coming up is also notoriously bulky, despite being early on. Being able to one-shot it like this, oh my god, that's cathartic for me.
Oh yeah.
I've lost a lot of runs in other categories to Iron Golem. What this new nuclear technology does, it turns a game that was once a pretty nicely balanced mix of luck, platforming skill, and glitch execution. Now it's entirely about movement.
Yeah.
It's 100% about movement, and glitch executions are kind of like the spice on top of the rest of the run. But the difference between a good time and a great time is how clean your jumps are.
This is just a movement and platforming exhibition at this point, which is really, really interesting. I was gonna say it reminds me a lot of the Symphony of the Night all bosses category, where that category you get some of the most overpowered damage possible with Shield Rod and Alucard Shield, and you just get to abuse that for the entirety of the run. So the boss fights themselves are just checkpoints along the way, where realistically the category is all about the movement between the bosses, not the actual boss fights themselves.
And it's kind of amazing we live in a world where Alucard Shield is not the best weapon in the Castlevania series. It's only second best now.
Yeah.
Nuclear number 1. Here we've got Hugh. This one's interesting. If you run too far in, the cutscene will start. So you gotta go in, crouch, and wait until Hugh kind of walks into the nuclear blast. So interestingly, you'll notice we did not grab Final Key, which is normally what opens up the door to Dracula. As you can probably guess, we're gonna opt to warp instead.
Okay, so I know the speedrun is definitely going to make a small subsection of watchers a little bit mad. I just want to say, speedrunners love these games to death. That's why they continue to play them decades after launch. And trust me, we are well aware of how ridiculous these broken glitches really are. I think this game is great, definitely underrated. We're maybe not showing it off in its best light, but this is still interesting, the fact that this exists.
This does not resemble a casual experience of Circle of the Moon.
No, this barely resembles speedrunning outside of the...
This barely resembles Circle of the Moon at all, you're right.
Yeah. Even speedruns, at least all the speedruns I've seen up until today are not this.
Well, so far, Nathan Graves, nuclear bomb in hand, has run through the castle unopposed. What do you think, DB? Do you think anything remaining in the game will threaten us?
I mean, you did say, oh, yeah, you're right. Aren't there randomly spawning enemies down here?
This is the scariest part of the run. There are ghosts in a couple of rooms down here that'll just spawn right on top of you. In this room, for example.
Yeah.
These specters can just kill the run.
Hold on.
Oops, try again.
Yeah, they don't have a hitbox as they're spawning in. So I imagine if they're inside of you, the same frame that you would normally be doing damage to them, you guys trade or something like that, and then you take damage and then it's run over.
That's right, and if you trade, you lose. No surprise how dragon zombies are gonna go.
We don't even get to see their beautiful... Well, no, we get to see them a little bit. Never mind.
Yeah, here it's actually quicker to go ahead and run all the way to the left because we are gonna need this heavy ring key item. This allows us to push boxes. The nuke can't blow up boxes.
Unfortunate,
Hard to make sense of. You can blow up a dragon, it's not a box. So the final boss remaining before Dracula is gonna be Death. However, there is some cool new stuff in here. We're gonna see one more brand new glitch using frame advance. to speed up some of these box puzzles. Basically, this is a double frame perfect. Yeah, so you find the right frame to jump, then you jump for 1 frame, then you land, and right as you land, you activate the card combo, which really the game doesn't like handling that. So it kind of makes the boxes a part of the background, and then you can slide through. It's very weird.
And that skip saves like how much time of the box puzzle normally?
In total, probably, we're going to include this room too, it probably saves a total of 10 to 15 seconds.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so at world record level, that's huge.
Now, if we want to pause here real quick, okay, this is one of the most exciting moments of the run because we actually can't use the nuke on death.
Oh, really?
I'm not entirely sure why. We got to fight this guy legit. No, I'm just kidding.
You
just sit in the corner and death dies. Much like with Hugh, you gotta wait a little, you gotta delay.
So that way he enters the screen, gets affected by the nuke. Do you kill both phases at the same time? Like you do enough damage that it like skips the second phase?
So not at the same time, that's why we have to linger here a little bit. Because off screen, he gets hit once, he dies. He undergoes his transformation, gets hit once and dies. So you have to wait for all that to play out.
Okay, I was expecting you to get a level up for each phase, but I guess you just get it for the second one then?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. So there's the level up, the animation starts, and you're out of there.
We didn't actually see death, so I'm just going to mention for the record, probably the weakest death in the series. I mean, the boss is okay. He does have a top hat.
It works out perfectly that little shortcut leads straight to the beginning of the game, which is also the end of the game.
Warp on up, then clip into the door. Then we're going to do one more clip. And as we're in the air, that nuclear radiation just melts Dracula.
It's funny, too, like, we haven't even mentioned how low you are on health this entire run, because, like, it's not like anything's
in
really
a way, it's kind of like you might as well be at 1 HP, because one hit the run's over no matter what, whether or not you die.
So this run is technically hitless.
It is.
Yeah, wow.
Glitched Circle of the Moon no-hit.
No-hit world record.
Hey, for the record, I've done a glitchless no-hit too, okay? That's way harder.
Dude, he doesn't even get a chance to transform.
The second the frame that eye opens up, it's over. Do you even see the eye?
Oh, there's the eye.
There's the eye.
And it's gone.
For 1 frame.
He tried.
And that's the end of the game.
Yeah. We could see the whole world is nothing but a nuclear wasteland now. Dracula melts into nuclear goo. And Nathan Graves, the most irradiated man in the world, stands alone at the end of time.
But hang on. Is Nathan still nuclear?
Oh.
During this cutscene coming up. Everyone's going to be standing on the cliffside, as is Castlevania tradition.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully the nuke is gone, or the world might be in danger.
Yeah, the castle's now crumbling.
Oh my god, he's still nuclear.
Oh, no. Somebody
defeated Dracula at what cost? So yeah, that Circle of the Moon nuclear all bosses. I really hope everyone liked it. It's one of my favorite categories. Just for the sheer spectacle of it, that's great. The story of it, just someone coming into the community for the first time and revolutionizing the game, is an excellent story. And then from a gameplay point of view, the heavy focus on platforming and glitch execution is really dynamic, very fun to optimize, very fun to play.
Thank you all so much for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I want to give a huge shout out to JupiterClimb for showing me these crazy new developments in Circle of the Moon speedrunning. And if you want to see us go over the new nuclear any % speedrun that finishes the game in under 3 minutes, I have that video available to view right now up on my Patreon. Patreon supporters are the reason I get to keep making videos like this, and for as little as $1 a month, you get access to all my videos early and ad-free, as well as bonus content and a special role on my Discord server. You could also follow my Twitch channel if you want to see me do content like this live. I'd love to see you in the chat sometime. And a big thank you to my Patreon supporters, including Microb, George Kegel, Reinsguard1, Nanoseed Production Company, C, Eric Miller, Immortal Demon, Barnabas de Grey, Toby Bear, Mr. Cigar, Lieutenant CYX, Clint, Soma Jean, TJ Foster, Atomic Dracula, Suchioto, Kenneth, Chaosvania, Jokum Palm, and WJB.